Welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast, where we talk all things marketing strategies, business systems, personal development insights, and conduct interviews with successful CEOs and entrepreneurs. Learn the exact strategies on how seven-figure CEOs market and scale their companies with your host, Chris Rodriguez.
Welcome, everybody, to the Seven Figure CEO podcast. Your host, Chris Rodriguez, here with Mr. Zach Cloonan, owner of Zachary Martial Arts, a mixed martial arts academy located in Zachary, Louisiana. Mr. Cloonan's been in business for 7 years. He's a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo and a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We have a very similar history in regards to our background in training, so I'm really excited for this podcast. Mr. Cloonan, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So to kick us off, can you please just give me a little history about your school? You know, I know you've been in business for about 7 years. Talk to me about the programs you offer, the markets you serve, and where you guys are at now.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and just start right at the beginning. So we've owned the school for approximately 7 years. And I started off basically, you know, the white belt level all the way up. I grew up in the martial arts school that we currently own. And got my black belt under the previous owner, and then got my certifications and everything. And then the school started to go under. And I was in the back office with the previous instructor, and I said, well, it's time to go and open up my own school. And I was getting up from the table and walking out. He goes, I want to sell you the school. And so we bought the school. We had 20 students. I'm a third degree black belt at the time. And it took us about 4 months to break even. And so we had to undo a lot of different things. And then all of a sudden the program just skyrocketed within the Taekwondo. And then we maintained the Taekwondo for about 6 years right before COVID hit. And then we found this organization called Gracie United. And I went all the way to headquarters, knocked on the door. He let me come in, and then I started training. And we talked about getting a school going. And then we started the transition from Taekwondo to mixed martial arts.
Amazing. Yes, very similar story as well for me. Started in Taekwondo. Fell in love with jiu-jitsu. My school is now a MMA Academy, a blend of striking and ground. So, I got to ask, because I think any business owner that was in business prior to COVID and is still in business today, has a story. How were you guys affected by COVID? If you kind of had to sum up your game plan, what was it?
That is a great question to ask. And to be completely honest, I don't think any of us were truly prepared when COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we all got that order to shut down. And so we shut down and we did everything online. We went virtual. We actually tried virtual for about 8 weeks. The problem is we hadn't made the transition yet. We were still 100% Taekwondo. We had 180 students. In less than 2 to 3 weeks, we dropped from 180 to 80 students. Ouch. And we were not enforcing cancellations or anything like that. We were just letting people go. And so I remember having this conversation with my wife within the 8th week of being in zero down, that we can't afford the bills no more. And we have to change something. And the Zoom and the online training is not working. And I was following this guy that was all the way in New York. And he was owning a 24/7 fitness gym. And he was opened up phase 0. And we decided to do the same thing. We opened up 100% phase 0. And we went from 80 to 180 again, just like that. And we didn't follow any of the guidelines whatsoever. We said, with the governor's order, if you had a condition, then you didn't have to have a mask or anything like that. And so we ran with the order that everybody had a condition and we didn't ask nobody. what it was, because they didn't have to say it per governor's order. So we ended up getting a COVID inspector within the facility. And I remember being on the mat teaching a class of 3 to 6 year olds, and we had a lot of them. No one in the school was wearing a mask or anything like that. We had a packed facility of 3 to 6 year olds. And I remember looking over at my instructor that was co-assisting with me, and I said, whatever you do, don't stop, keep training, keep the class going. And my wife is over there running the front desk, and we just had a brand new born baby. He was probably 6 months old, and he was crawling on mama's chest and just talking, just babbling and everything. This COVID inspector comes in, and we had the station set for the guidelines. We had the cleaning stations, we had the hand sanitizer stations, we had all this in play. And he comes in and he goes, no one's complained about you, but I don't like the fact that everybody in here is not wearing a mask. And I had gone through the orders and everything, and my one response to the COVID inspector was, everyone in here has a condition. And he stops and he goes, okay, where's your cleaning supplies? And I pointed, I said, cleaning supplies are over here and everything's over here. And he wrote it down in his notes. And I said, well, before you leave, based off the governor's orders, everyone in here has a medical condition, and that's what's going to go on your report. And he chuckled, wrote it down in his report, and he never came back. And I was actually just about terrified that he was going to put chains on the doors, because I was following the guy in New York with his 24/7 fitness gym, basically doing the same thing that we decided to do. And but he never.
Are you talking about Ian Smith?
Yep, that would be correct.
Okay, got it.
And I couldn't remember his name right off the bat, but yeah, he was in the mainstream news for sure.
Yes, he was.
He gained a lot of attraction, and we basically did exactly the same thing. And so we kept on going, and business was good all the way through that point. So we stopped doing the online classes, and we just went 100%. And we actually were able to be left alone, and we were able to do businesses as normal.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. Well, thanks for sharing how you guys kind of, overcame COVID as a BJJ school. I know you guys weren't 100% BJJ yet, but Zoom classes with pillows, dressed in hoodies was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And, we're all martial artists, and there are so many similarities regardless of the style that you teach. But I'm curious, now that you guys are kind of full in with your BJJ program, you have students competing at, NAGA tournaments and things like that. What challenges or hurdles, do you think, if any, that you have as a BJJ school that maybe, a Taekwondo only school wouldn't have? Do you think there are any challenges or hurdles?
To answer that question, so when we started off the school as a Taekwondo school, people were joining for the self-defense aspect. They weren't joining because it was a traditional martial arts. They weren't joining because of the belt system or anything like that. And just to add on to that, you have a lot of schools that will charge for the belt system. And we never did that. We never charged for the belt system or anything like that. We made it an earned progression. So doing the transition to the BJJ was incredibly easy to do. And as soon as we added the BJJ and our clientele saw the self-defense aspect of it, more people transitioned off of working from the traditional forms and doing forms for 35, 45 minutes of a class to hands-on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, and the MMA. So doing that transition was incredibly easy to do. I can say that it was probably the most scariest thing that we've ever done in our business, was coming from something that was stable to something that is in a transition stage that is not necessarily stable during the transitional phase, but it has stabilized towards the BJJ, and the traditional aspect is almost non-existent in our school. It's almost 100%. To add on to that, the Taekwondo aspect was never competitive. So our students never went to a tournament, and we would try to push and push and push and try to get 40 kids to go to a tournament, and we would only get 8. when we did this transition to the jiu-jitsu aspect, we can get 40 people to go to a competition, and all we have to do is just send out a link, and people click on the link and they get registered for the tournament. So I think people see more value behind the combative style of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and the self-defense and the competitive side than they ever have with the traditional side. And that's coming from our own experience.
Gotcha. Well, let's kind of shift. I love marketing. Obviously, you are one of our awesome GrowPro clients. And let's kind of shift and talk a little bit about how you market your academy. So predominantly, who is your target market? Are you mainly going after adult students? Are you more heavily kid-based? What does that look like?
So that's another very good question. When we were Taekwondo, we were never adults. I could never get an adult on the mat. When we transitioned to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that adult program skyrocketed, and we now have 30 plus adults. So from the Taekwondo aspect of it, the heavy market for us has always been the 8 to 12. Being affiliated with the association's main market base was 3 to 6 year olds. And we always struggled on getting 3 to 6 year olds, but we can get 7 and up, and we can always get that market area. So we prefer to target everybody. We like to get the 3 year olds just as much as we like to get the 50 year olds. The biggest target market for us is still the 8 to 12. That seems to be the biggest go-getter for us, the bread and butter of our school.
Awesome. And what types of marketing do you do? Obviously, you're using GrowPro. We're running Facebook ads for you. Is that your sole avenue of marketing? And how is that working? And are you doing anything else?
So before we partnered up with y'all, we were doing everything on our own by ourselves. And we could generate January, February, 40 leads and get them all signed up. And then after that, it was 20 leads every month from that point. And then what ended up happening is it all dried up and we couldn't get any more. And that was at the beginning of the year. For 6 months, we were probably getting like 4 or 5. And I was trying to figure out, why are we only getting 4 or 5? When last year we were getting 40, 40, 20, and then it just all stopped. So when we started this transition, that's when I started seeing your ads, and I'm looking for different avenues to make this transition easy. And that is probably the biggest reason why we partnered up with GrowPro, was to test y'all out during this transitional phase. And then I'm hoping that as the transition stabilizes and we become 100% BJJ, kickboxing, boxing, that it completely plays out and we become a lifetime customer with y'all, Chris. And that's my intent. That's something that I was telling Kevin when we first started off, is our goal is to get 100% off of the Taekwondo, completely phase it out, and focus on what people want, which is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, I love running BJJ ads. It's something that has allowed my academy to grow very quickly. We saw a lot of success with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads. So really excited to have you on board. I also know you recently joined our concierge program, where we're doing the lead follow-up for you. What has that experience been like so far?
So far, that experience has been extremely good. So before we actually signed up on that program, we were doing it all on our own. We were reaching out to the client. We were following our scripts and everything. And I ended up losing one of our sweet ladies and to college. So she was moving out. And so she took care of everything. And we hired a new lady to take care of that. And she ended up losing 100 leads. And it just got buried. And so we ended up having to let her go. And so we then partnered up with y'all's agent program, and y'all have been doing a fantastic job. Y'all have been staying on top of it. Marina is doing phenomenal with reaching out to the clients and getting a book. So we've seen instead of almost like a slowdown, everything is starting to pick back up again. And so we're signing them up as soon as they're coming through the door. They're getting that wow factor on the mat with the BJJ. And then they're talking to us, how do we sign up with y'all? And so then we're falling right into that phase.
I love it. That's great to hear. Now, as we stated earlier, you have this background, 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and, your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey started in the last few years. As a blue belt, right, obviously your next step is to go for that purple all the way up to black. How has it been balancing running a martial arts school and teaching yourself as well as getting your own training in? Because sometimes that could be really difficult.
To be honest with you, finding the balance between teaching and training has always been hard. I think that's actually hard for a lot of instructors and school owners. I can remember when I was first starting off in the Taekwondo, we were sitting around a campfire with all the different school owners, and we were actually talking about that exact thing. How do you balance a school and also go and train? And so fortunately for us, we have a full staff of instructors, and we have a brown belt instructor that spearheads the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu program for us. So being on the mat, I don't necessarily have to be on the mat, but that gives me a lot of freedom to go and train at different Gracie United locations because we have a full staff. So I'm able to get my training in. And my favorite place to go train is at headquarters in Hammond, Louisiana, with Professor Raphael. That is my absolute dream place. It's my happy place to go and train. And so I love going right to the source of the organization and getting that high level of instruction and high level of training. And I always encourage my instructors to go to headquarters to train at the source.
It's funny. I was looking through some of your website pictures and on your Facebook business page just to kind of prepare for the podcast. And I saw a picture of Professor Raphael up on the wall. And believe it or not, I've known him for many, many years. I used to do tournament directing for Grappler's Quest, and he used to be one of our head referees at Grappler's Quest. So it's just, so cool to see it. It is, it's kind of a small world, being able to recognize oh, I know that guy. We used to work together at Grappler's Quest. So because this is also very similar to me, you said you had a baby, you and your wife had a baby right before COVID hit. And same thing for me. My son Cruz was born on March 3rd of 2020. So 2 weeks before we got shut down. And my wife and I used to work together at the school as well. So talk to me a little bit about that dynamic of working together with your wife. And now you've got this newborn baby and being able to, juggle running the academy, working together, and also, obviously wanting to be present with your child.
So that's awesome. So my wife and I, Sable, she and I don't believe in putting our son in a daycare setting. So Niall, my son, now being 2 years of age, is always with us. He's watching the class. He's punching. He's kicking. He wants to wrestle. He wants to be part of the school. And so going back 2 years, my wife has always had a dream and a vision to actually not necessarily be in the dojo, being in the school, but to own her own business. And that business is music. And so she grew up learning how to play guitar. And she would always go to the small hole in the wall business, Stan Lee's Music. And so that's how she got started. And when we were dating, she didn't know that we owned a martial arts school or academy or anything like that. But she always told me that she wanted to own a music shop, a music business.
So cool.
And so COVID actually changed the rules on how all that played out. And we had to wait until phase 3 for Louisiana to get her business up and running. And so I helped her achieve her dream, her goal. And so she doesn't run the martial arts school with me anymore. So we have a full staff to do all that. And so her dream has always been to focus on her music shop business. And she's been doing phenomenal, up to 30 students learning music.
Wow.
And we put the music store next to the martial arts academy.
Oh,
It
that's
was
perfect.
perfect timing and everything. And I remember contacting the landlord right before the tenant was leaving. And I said, landlord, when is the space going to be available? And we were the first ones to get signed on. We got 60 days free rent for the music shop. And she just blew it right out of the water. And
That's so
so
cool.
her music school has been just growing leaps and bounds. And
Well, it
so she
sounds
focuses.
Yeah, it sounds like Niles is going to have martial arts and music in his life, which
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of as well. I grew up playing the piano, musically inclined. And I think, man, what a better world it would be if every kid did music and martial arts. And now you guys get to offer that right side by side. That is so cool.
Yeah, we get to offer that side by side. And so she's in suite E and I'm in suite ABC. There's one business in between, but Niall just runs back and forth between the two businesses and he'll come see me while I'm doing something. And then when my wife is free, he'll run over there and see my wife. And so it's never a dull moment here at the Martial Arts Academy.
I love it. You know, they say hindsight's 2020. When we look back, right, you've been operating this school for 7 years, the school that you grew up in, right, that started your martial arts journey. You took it over, had a transition from the Taekwondo style to now going to BJJ. You got through COVID. If you were to do it all over again, what is just one thing you think you would have done a little differently?
I think the one thing that I would have done differently would have started off with the BJJ, the kickboxing. Definitely starting off that route because I believe that most people are looking for the self-defense aspect, and that's what people are telling us when they're signing up. We're wanting to learn self-defense. We're wanting to learn discipline and focus and those life skills. And those life skills come with the program, with being in the martial arts. That's kind of, I think, ingrained with each martial arts and each school owner is those life skills. So the one thing that I probably would have done differently is definitely have started off with the BJJ, the kickboxing, the boxing, and the MMA programs.
I love it. Any additional nuggets of wisdom or insight that you'd like to share to our fellow school owners?
Well, the one thing to share is just be yourself. People like honesty, and to just be yourself, be the instructor that you want to be.
I love it. Mr. Cloonan, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Looking forward to helping you reach your next goal with your student count. And thanks again. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Y'all have a great week.